Thank you, Shonda and Coleman. Beautiful. Actually, I need to put something under here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to stand for a little while this morning, and I may sit also, so we'll see. That was just beautiful. I just am kind of basking in the energy of that beautiful song. Our lesson this week is. I used to have a little joke that I would put out on the internet, and I would say something to the effect of my status is that I'm living in the present moment, or at least I was a moment ago. You know, it's an opportunity and a challenge, I think, for us to really learn how to be in the present moment. The title of my talk is The Mystical, Magical Now. There's an awareness that really helps all of us to really move back into an understanding that there really is only one time. There's only one time, ultimately. And whenever we are not really experiencing ourselves in this moment, right here, right now, that's because we are actually engaged in our thoughts, and we believe that our thoughts are the real. But our thoughts are simply thoughts, and they may or may not reflect the real. They may be very illusory. In fact, most of our thoughts are pretty illusory, to be honest. They're mostly illusions. And we have a tendency, though, then to identify with whatever it is that we are thinking. And in the very act of identifying with what we are thinking, we're no longer really being who we truly are. We are actually, in a sense, trying to, on some level, escape from who we truly are. And so I was thinking about what it means to be present and what it means to be now. And I came across this quote from Tony Visconti. Don't know who Tony is, was looking for him, but couldn't find much about him. But he said, it's easily overlooked that what is now called vintage was once brand new. We have a tendency to really honor a lot of things from the past, but recognizing that all of those things from the past at one point were absolutely new, and that the real power in experiences and in our lives are what's happening in the now moment. One of my favorite spiritual teachers on many levels and also rather profane levels at times is Garrison Keillor. And Garrison said, "Thank you, dear God, for this good life, and forgive us if we do not love it enough. Thank you for the rain and for the chance to wake up in 3 hours and go fishing. I thank you for that now because I won't feel so thankful then." You know, it's interesting to talk about now, because the moment you say the word now, it's no longer now. And so part of the practice is really paying attention to really moving back into an experience of this moment. And the moment that you do that and you say something about it, you're no longer in this moment, you're in the moment before. Make sense? Dwight Eisenhower said, "Things are more like they are now than they have ever been before." And so our lesson today is to really kind of consider, but also more than just consider, to really practice being present. So let me ask you, I know that many of you practice different forms and different ways of meditating, different ways of being present. What is a way that helps you to stay present? Feel free to share if you have one. Watching your breath,
Yoga.
breathing, yoga,
Gratitude.
gratitude, yes.
When I'm driving on a highway, reading the signs out loud.
Reading the signs out loud. I haven't tried that one. That would be a good one, yeah.
You can really go places when you're driving.
Yeah.
Chants and certain sounds.
Sounds, chants, yeah.
Getting into nature.
Nature, yeah, nature's a great one, yeah.
Blessing somebody or something.
blessing somebody or something. Yeah, the act of blessing in itself can help you bring back to this current moment, can't you?
I like to do an actual mental check, that when I'm not thinking right, to just stop and go, oh no, this is not how I'm supposed to think. And sometimes it's almost a physical effort to push it out of my brain and put in place what I know should be.
Gotcha. Well, and one of the things, yeah, Russell?
I take note of what my body feels like, whether or not it's tense or relaxed or.
Yeah, perfect, yeah. So these are lots of different techniques and ways, and they're all valuable. They all have a way of helping us to move back into the present moment. And I'm going to suggest to you that whenever we find ourselves engaged in or really caught up in the milieu of our thoughts, then we have no longer allowed ourselves to stay in the present moment. We're either in the past or we're projecting into the future. And so hanging out in the past, memory can have a good purpose, and there's a lot of good things that we can do with memory, and we can learn a lot of things from memory. But one of the challenges that we run into is that we have a tendency to think that memory is real. And especially our memory. Everybody's got a perfect memory, right? Especially with something that you feel has offended you in some way. Does that understand what I'm saying? And you can bet that's absolute truth, at least in your thinking and in your body and in your ego consciousness. But in reality, every memory that you have ultimately is an illusion. It's something that was created by the mind. Yes, you had an experience, and then you formed a memory around that experience. But that experience no longer exists. The only thing that exists is your formation of a memory around it. And so what you have is a conception of an experience. And the conception of the experience is not the experience. You follow me? And so part of our healing work is to begin to recognize that what we are really suffering from ultimately is a memory. And that a memory is ultimately a conception that we had about something that we've experienced. Does that make sense? And so part of our healing work is to release and transform the memory. Now, how many of you believe that you can change the past? Some people do. Some people think you can actually change the past. I'm not too sure that we can change the past. But I think we can change our conception and our perception of the past. And so we can reform and reshape some of the experiences that we've had in such a way that they're no longer creating and causing the kind of suffering that we've been holding on to about that experience. And there are ways of doing that, and there are techniques for doing that. Some of those, I think, can happen on a more intellectual level, and that's a good start, but it doesn't necessarily complete the process. Because in reality, one of the things that happens is that we have an experience, we create and form a memory, a thought system, a belief about that particular experience, and that memory and that thought has an energy attached to it, and it's usually an emotional energy. It's not unusual. It is an emotional energy. We have an emotional energy around that memory. And in some ways, that emotional energy actually helps to keep us in that memory, and it also helps to try to protect that memory. It tries to keep that memory alive. And one of the things that happens is that memory can be very painful. And so we can have a traumatic experience, and whether we know it or not, we are going through this experience, and when our system is not geared toward being able to handle or deal with that particular experience in that particular moment, then the mind has a wonderful way of helping to protect us from overload, from overwhelm of the energies that flow through our system. And so it creates this mechanism where we push this memory down into what we call our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is that part of our mind that is actually just below our awareness. It may be just at the surface. Sometimes it pops up every now and then. We kind of go, no, get back down there. We're not going to deal with that right now. That's too painful. That's too scary. Too much energy. Can't deal with that. And so we create these amazing leaks in our subconscious mind by pushing down our memories. And the way that these memories, these energies, these emotional energies leak out is they kind of leak out in ways that we don't even recognize, and then they pop up in different places in different ways in our life. I've talked about this in different ways. Have you ever sat in a swimming pool and tried to sit on top of a beach ball? How many of you ever done that? You know what I'm talking about? How many of you have been very successful in keeping the beach ball under the water? Eventually, that beach ball is coming up somewhere, isn't it? And it pops out, and that's kind of how our memories happen. We're going along, and all of a sudden, this beach ball of a memory pops out, and it pops out right on the face of somebody that you work with, live with, interact with, and you have another experience, and an experience that's similar to the one you had before. But you forget that you had that experience before, and you think it's this person right here, right now, that's doing this to you. Right? And that's how this whole kind of thing works. And so what happens is that you create another memory that is basically a repeat of a former memory that you've had, another experience that you've had, and then you create a whole chain of these. And oftentimes that's why you find yourself going through experiences over and over and over again, because you're continuing to go through these kinds of experiences so that you can find a way to release whatever that is that's going on in your subconscious mind. And so one of the ways to really begin to understand how we can really heal and transform what's going on inside of us from that perspective is to begin to learn how to observe our thoughts and begin to pay attention to what actually does come up from our subconscious mind. And rather than trying to push it back down again, we find ways to transmute that experience. We find ways of not changing the past, but changing our story about the past. We do what in psychology is called a reframe. Reframes are actually very powerful because in reality, see, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what you imagine and what was real. You realize that? There's amazing and wonderful studies that have been done about, it was in Stanford University, they took a group of basketball players and they had one group of basketball players practice for so many hours a day shooting free throws. And then they had another group that had not practiced at all shooting free throws. And then they had another group just imagine that they were, the same amount of time, imagine that they were shooting these free throws. And what they discovered is that the people who were shooting the free throws and the ones who were imagining they were shooting the free throws basically scored almost the same. But the ones who didn't do any practice at all were not nearly as accurate. But the accuracy of the ones who were imagining were just as effective as the ones who were actually doing the practice. Your imagination is extremely powerful. And it's extremely powerful in creating experiences, whether you realize it or whether you whether you know it or not. And it's happening right now. It's happening all the time. You are actually creating right now. In your mind, you are creating something. And the question really is, are you creating those kinds of things that you want to continue to create? And if you're not, you need to ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm creating now? And do I really want this? A Course in Miracles says, I have repeatedly emphasized the one level of the mind is not understandable to another. And so it is with the ego and the Holy Spirit. With time and eternity, eternity is an idea of God, so the Holy Spirit understands it perfectly. And time is a belief of the ego. So the lower mind, which is the ego's domain, accepts it without question. And the only aspect of time that is eternal is right now. And so you and I have an opportunity we have an opportunity to change our future. And one of the ways that we change our future is by changing our conception, our belief system, our memories of the past. And so we're all going to jump into a time machine, right? And go back there and fix everything that went wrong. No, it doesn't work that way, does it? See, the only time you have to actually change anything is now. And the only thing that you really have the power to change is what you are thinking and holding in your consciousness right now. Now is the moment of power. Now is the time that you have the ability to shift. To be able to shift and focus on those things that really are what I call life-enhancing, life-creating kinds of energies and thoughts. Or you can take the time to focus on now, in this moment, all of those things that are draining your energy, that are depleting you, that are life-depleting. And those are the two really types of energy that we have to work with. And the only time that we ever have to be able to work with those oh, that was the word I was looking for. Is now. So, our work today is about really noticing and paying attention to now. And now. And now. You know, our service may be a little short today because I know that some of you are not really now, you're actually already at the football game. Whichever football game you happen to, I know some of you are watching, are ready for certain football games. But that's not the reason. But the reason really is because, you know, practicing and being in the now is something that we're going to be needing to do, not just today, but really throughout our week and throughout our life. Because the more we can practice noticing and paying attention to what's going on in us in this moment, right now, and learning how not to resist what it is and what is going on, but simply to allow it to be shifted and transformed. One of my favorite teachers about this idea, many of you are familiar with the work of Eckhart Tolle, and two of these most amazing works, one is called The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment, and the other one is called A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. And if you've not read these, I highly recommend both of them, and we'll probably do more classes and more lessons on these at different times. But one of the things that Eckhart teaches is that even the very act of putting a label on something is something that removes us from the direct experience of it. And he has an exercise that he has you to consider a flower and to go and to not try to give a title or name or description to the flower, but simply to experience the flower as it is in this moment. That's not an easy thing to do because we're very conditioned to label and to describe and to try and fit all of our experiences into particular boxes. And that's one of the ways that the ego mind works. It especially works that way with others in our lives. We have a tendency to want to hold people in a particular way of thinking and being. And in the very act of doing that, we are holding them in a prison of their past. Because we have a tendency to experience people and then make assumptions and create a concept about the people in our lives, and we either expect them or, well, we do. We expect them to stay within the confines of our conception of them. And in the very act of doing that, we're not only holding them in prison, but we're actually holding ourselves in prison. And so in order to really have a connection and a relationship with another human being or another person, or for that matter, another animal or another being of any kind, we need to be open to seeing and experiencing them as they are now. Because the reality is, you are not the same person that walked into this room. Do you realize that? And if you think you are, you're living in the past. Because you didn't walk in there, you're not walking into this room right now. You did that already. And it's a past experience. And you have already been changed. Just in the very act of being present here in this moment. Right now. And so part of our transformation and part of helping us to break out of our prison is to begin to recognize that whenever we see a person, we have an image and a concept of that person. And if we can begin to recognize that what we are interacting with is not the person, but the concept we have about them, then we can be open to the possibility that that concept can be changed. And we become curious. One of the most valuable tools for moving back into the present moment is curiosity. What if what I believe about this person is not real? And what if there's something about this person that I could learn more about, that I could discover, that I could find out how they are in this moment, now, today? And then how they are today may be something that is absolutely amazing, or it may be something absolutely terrifying, but it'll be something new. And what if we did the same thing for ourselves? What if we really, see, one of the things that we don't recognize is that we also have a relationship with ourselves that is based on a concept that we have about ourselves. And we call it a self-image. And the question really is, what self has this image? What's the self that we're talking about? Is it the self with a small s, which is our personality, our ego? Or is it the self that is an infinite, unlimited being of spirit, of light, of possibility? And which one do you think will really help you to experience more of the upliftment, the life-enhancing experiences in life, and which one are going to keep us stuck in a particular box or a particular way of being? Well, we won't know unless we actually move back into this present moment and really observe and notice and pay attention and see, where am I? And what am I open to? And what am I seeing? And what's the self that I'm allowing to unfold? What's the self that allows me to express greater possibility and creativity? What is the true nature of my being? Many of you know that I've been working a lot with Matt Kahn's work, Whatever Arises, Love That. I talked about earlier how we sometimes have experiences, and then we take those experiences and we try to hide them out underneath us, underneath our conscious awareness, in our subconscious mind. And one of the practices that I love that Matt Kahn teaches is one of the most valuable, I think, ways of helping us to move back in the now moment, and that is to send love to whatever comes up. And not just what comes up out here in the world, but what comes up inside of us. What reactions do we have about what goes on out here? And then send loving energy to that part of our psyche that's trying to somehow resist whatever is going on out here in the world. We have experiences, and those experiences sometimes create within us a resistance to what is. We sometimes feel like we're overwhelmed. We sometimes feel like we are frustrated or resentful or challenged, or at times we're just sad. And if we can begin to love those parts of ourselves, it's amazing how it really moves us back into an energy that's allowing our creative power to express something new and something different in this moment. And when we do that, we're creating something new and different in the next moment. And so the only time we have to create something new, something in the future, is right now. And right now. And right now. Now is the closest approximation of eternity that this world offers. It is in the reality of now, without past or future, that the beginning of the appreciation of eternity lies. For only now is here, and only now presents the opportunities and opportunistics for the holy encounters in which salvation can be found. It's from the Course in Miracles. And so our work for this week is a practice of mindfulness. And so we're going to move into our meditation time. So take a nice deep breath and just begin to allow your breath to flow gently in and out. And let yourself simply be aware and observe your breathing. And let your awareness be focused on your breathing all the way from the beginning of the inhale. And be totally present to your breathing all the way to the end of the exhale. And just let your awareness be focused as much as you can, totally, on your breathing. And as you breathe in and out, let it be natural and flowing. And just notice if thoughts arise. And just bless the thoughts, notice them, observe them. And just know that I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. And you might even ask yourself, is this a thought of the past? Or is this a thought of the future? Or is this an awareness of the present? And so let your awareness move back to your breathing. And as you let your awareness be centered in your breath and your breathing, let the bell or the chime bring you always back to this present moment. And just notice the sound from the beginning of the chime all the way to the end. Breathing in and breathing out. I am here. I am now. I am. If the mind is chattering, just notice it. If there are sensations, just notice, I have sensations, but I'm not these sensations. Just be present to whatever experience is here. If there's some part of you that is resisting, Just take a moment and send love to that part of you that's resisting. If there's some thought of the future, just know that you're holding that thought right now. And you can change it right now. If there's some thought of the past, know that it no longer exists. It's not here or now. And you can change whatever thought you're holding right here and now. And in the very act of changing it, you're creating a different future, a different possibility. Here and now. Take a nice deep breath. Let a feeling of gratitude come into your heart, just for what is here in this moment, and for whatever arises, trusting and knowing that you're creating a greater possibility here and now. And so it is. Take another nice deep breath. Gently let your awareness be in this room, this time and place. Let an expanded feeling come into your heart of knowing that you're in the moment of power. And give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Bring your awareness in this room. Stretch a little bit. And so it is.
We at Unity in the Heart of Austin are committed to inspiring people to awaken to their unique divine nature through spiritual teachings, through heart-to-heart connections, through prayer, and through sacred service. And we provide tools, spiritual tools, that allow you to live your best possible life. I'm Reverend Tony Roebuck, minister at Unity in the Heart of Austin, and I truly hope that you are inspired by and that you are transformed by, you enjoy this week's spiritual message. And if you would like to leave a donation, a tithe, to help the work of this ministry in supporting you and others like you, then we are truly grateful for your generosity and for helping to make the world a better place. Because we know that life is meant to be good.